Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about how to get started with Visual Studio 2019 on Windows for C++ development. This is not VS Code, it is Visual Studio 2019. The first thing we want to do is navigate to visualstudio.microsoft.com/students. That will bring you to this page. You're going to want to pick an end-to-end development environment on PC to build any app, service, or game. Go down to choose your development environment and pick desktop with C++. That will give you a download, and once you run it, you should be able to enter your BGSU credentials and have Visual Studio 2019 all set up. Once that's done, you can roll down here to your Start menu to the letter V, and you'll see you'll have Visual Studio. I have some older versions as well, but we're going to go ahead and open Visual Studio 2019. That'll go ahead and start up. It gives us some options. Let's go to create a new project. That's where I want you all to start if you're using Visual Studio 2019. You're going to filter on C++, and you're going to pick Empty Project. We'll click Next. We'll give the project a name. This is where you should name it appropriately for this class. So I'm going to name it this. It's going to go in my CS5010 folder, which I've already created. And I strongly suggest you check this box that says place solution and project in the same directory. Go ahead and say create. And Visual Studio will go ahead and load up. You'll see we have our project over here on the right, all these things. So the first thing we really want to do is go in here and we want to add a new item. So I just right-clicked over there, add new item. We want to add a CPP file. You can name this whatever you want. I always name the file that has the main function in it, main.cpp. Okay? We're going to go ahead and write a very basic C++ program here. And include IOStream, int main, return 0. Do some output. And we'll go ahead and save. Okay, so this is the nice thing about Visual Studio for you. The first thing is we can just hit play up here and my code will run. You'll see it gives me output in terms of what's happening down here at the bottom. It's compiling my file and then it's going to go ahead and run. You'll see that I have my output here, hello 5010, what a wonderful day. It gives me some information and I can press any key to close this window. So there we go. We've now seen everything that we need. The other thing that we can do that's really nice is we can set breakpoints in here. Okay? So let me add a little bit of code here just to make it a little bit more interesting for debugging purposes. Let's say int a equals 98. We'll start that, and I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint right here, and we'll say local Windows debugger, get it started. Now this brings me to the debugging view. You'll see my code is actually still running here. It's giving me my output, and I can see all that. But right here, my code has stopped on this line. I can actually hover over variables. I can see what value is in them, see what's going on here. I can look down here in my watch window. There are autos you can add here. Which is really nice. You can add a watch to something else. You can add another variable name in there, see what its value is. It shows me the call stack. And then I can use these buttons to navigate. Okay? Step into, if this was a function call and I click this, this would step into the function so I could trace down into it. Step over just goes to the next line. Step out would leave the function. So here I'm just going to step over and you'll see it brings me down to the return line. I can always stop debugging as well. Or I can just press play to continue to the next breakpoint. So we'll go ahead. This is still running. You'll see any key to close. Fantastic. So we have our project up and running. If you want to add other files, just right-click over here and say Add New Item, and you can tell all these things. Okay? It'll be really nice. It's very helpful. The only thing we have left here is to get our code into Gitlab. So the way we're going to do this is going to be a little different than I've shown you previously. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. We'll create CS5010 summer 2020, and I think I did a 9999 green. Hey, we'll go ahead and do this. Make sure it's an empty project. Don't check anything. We create our project. Great. Hey, so we want to go back here. We know where we created this project, right? If you have any question, you can always hover over here. You'll see C, users, Robert, desktop, CS5010, CS5010 this. So there's really two ways to do this in Windows. You can either use PowerShell, which is the console built into Windows, but all of you have Git installed as well, so you can also use Git Bash. Now I want to show you the process is basically identical. I tend to like Git Bash a little more because it's built to work with Git, but that's me. So you'll see we can do a pwd in each of these to see our current directory, our present working directory. See, we have the Windows form over here, the Unix form over here. We are going to go ahead and go to desktop. Now, if you notice, I only typed the first couple characters here and press tab. That's called autocomplete. It works in both of these. It's very helpful. So CS_5010. There we go. LS will show me what's in the directory. I'll get to where I'm going here. Okay, same thing here. I can go to CD, desktop, CS5010 into my directory. I get the LS. You'll see I have the exact same things going on. This is really nice. This is really good. Okay? So the first thing I can, as I said, everything is identical from here. So whether you're in PowerShell or Git Bash, you can do the same thing. You'll notice even this. I'm going to continue using Git Bash because it is my preference. So we'll close PowerShell. We'll go in here. The first thing we're going to do is a git init. Git init creates a repository locally. This is a little different process than we've used before, but it's going to be just fine. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to touch my git ignore file. That creates a git ignore file, which is just a file that we use to tell Git what not to pay attention to. This is one of the things I do like to do. Gitignore.io. Type in Visual Studio. We can create this. I'm going to go ahead and select all this and copy it. Now you should be able to open that file here as well. I should just be able to say, well, let's open a file. And you'll see I have my .gitignore, so I can go ahead and open that. Paste, save, fantastic. We'll go back to Git Bash. You'll see what I want to do here is I want to add a couple things. The first thing I want to add is my gitignore. Great. Then I'm going to check my status to see what else is there. Okay, so I have a new file and I have some untracked things. So what I'm just going to do here is say git add asterisk. I can just do a git add dot. At this point, because it's ignoring the files I want it to. Okay, so this is great. Git commit -am first commit. Okay. At this point, we would normally just type git push, but if I type git push, it says I'm missing a remote. Git doesn't know where to send my code. Well, if we go back to the project we created, you'll see that the place we're actually working now is this push an existing folder. We've been in that folder. We've done the init. We've done the add. We've done the commit. So what do we need to do? First, we need to add our remote. Now, you'll remember in this case, I'm going to go ahead and paste this here. We are not using SSH generally unless you have that set up. So what we can do is go ahead and say https://gitlab.com/rgreen13. Okay, so we should good. And then the last command, git push -u origin master. We'll do this. Compressing objects, all set up. Congratulations, your code is here on GitLab. Now, as we go forward, we can make these changes, do everything that we need to, add some C-ins, some C-outs, whatever we're working on for our project. That's great. We can do things over here. You can mess around and play with all this kind of stuff, and please feel free to. Git commit -am added for loop git push, and we are good to go. So hopefully this video has given you an idea how to use Visual Studio 2019. Why use this over Visual Studio Code? Well, it requires a little less configuration. In addition, it lets you have very quick access to debugging and input and output in that nice debugging terminal that pops out. So hopefully for any of you that are having trouble with VS Code, this will work wonderfully for Visual Studio.